The stars beyond the galactic rim held countless secrets, and the Krellian Dominion believed they had uncovered them all. For 300 years, their empire had expanded without pause, consuming worlds and civilizations like a hungry beast. Their warships were legends of destruction, their warriors trained from birth to know only victory. 73 star systems had fallen before their might, and not once had they met true resistance. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, and studied the star charts with hungry eyes. He was young for a fleet commander, barely past his 40th season, but his record spoke louder than his age. 12 successful campaigns, 800 enemy vessels destroyed. Not a single defeat marred his service record. The High Council had given him this mission as a reward, a simple scouting operation to probe the borders of a newly discovered species that called themselves humans. The data they had gathered was laughable. The humans possessed only a handful of colonies. Their technology seemed primitive by Krellian standards, and their military fleet was scattered across their territory in small defensive groups. Vexthor had brought 12 warships for what should have required only 3. He wanted to make an impression, to send a message that would echo across this region of space. The Krellian Dominion was coming, and resistance was futile. His second officer, a grizzled veteran named Kresh, approached with the latest sensor readings. "Commander, we are approaching the human boundary. A single station marks their territorial claim. It appears to be a civilian outpost with minimal defenses." Vexthor allowed himself a thin smile. "Prepare all weapons. We will destroy the station as our opening statement. Let these humans understand the price of standing in our path." Light years away, at the edge of human space, Station Commander Danny Morrison was having a quiet morning. Outpost Frontier was not a glamorous assignment. The station housed only 300 personnel, most of them scientists and traders. His security team consisted of 20 guards armed with small arms, hardly a military force. The station's defensive capabilities were limited to what the official reports called standard border protection, which Danny knew was bureaucratic language for not much. He was reviewing supply requisitions when his sensor operator, a young woman named Lisa Chen, called out with urgency in her voice. "Commander, we have multiple contacts entering our space. Configuration unknown, but they're big. 12 vessels, military grade by the looks of their energy signatures." Danny moved to the sensor station and felt his stomach tighten. The approaching ships were massive, each one easily 3 times the size of any human frigate. They were moving in a combat formation, weapons charged and shields active. This was not a diplomatic mission. "Send the standard warning," Danny ordered, keeping his voice calm despite the fear crawling up his spine. "Inform them they have violated sovereign territory and must withdraw immediately." Lisa transmitted the message while Danny activated the station's emergency protocols. Blast doors sealed throughout the facility. Civilians were directed to the interior safe rooms, and his security team scrambled to their stations. He knew it was probably pointless, but he had to try. Maybe these aliens would listen. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Vexthor received the human transmission and listened to it once before deleting it with a gesture of contempt. "They dare to issue warnings? To us, weapons officer, target the station. Fire when ready." "Commander," Kresh said quietly, "perhaps we should attempt communication first." The High Council's orders were to scout and assess, not to initiate hostilities. Vexthor turned on his second officer with fury in his eyes. "Are you questioning my judgment? That station represents everything weak about this species. They hide behind words and warnings while possessing no true power. We will teach them that power is all that matters in this universe." The weapons officer hesitated for only a moment before following orders. The Crimson Fang's main cannons, charged with a distinctive whine that every Krellian warrior knew, meant death was coming. Vexthor watched the targeting display and prepared to give the order to fire. Then something unexpected happened. Outpost Frontier did not simply wait to die. The station's exterior panels suddenly retracted, revealing weapon systems that should not have existed on a civilian outpost. Danny Morrison had kept many secrets from the official reports, the biggest being that Outpost Frontier was not just a border station. It was a testing ground for experimental human weapons technology. "All batteries fire at will," Danny ordered, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Show these bastards what happens when they threaten human lives." The rail cannons fired first, accelerating magnetically propelled rounds to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles crossed the distance between the station and the Krellian fleet in seconds. Vexthor barely had time to register the incoming fire before two of his escort ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by kinetic impacts that overwhelmed their shields in an instant. "Evasive maneuvers," Vexthor shouted, but it was already too late. The matter disruptors activated next, weapons that human scientists had developed by studying exotic particles at the quantum level. The beams did not simply damage Krellian ships, they unmade them, breaking down the molecular bonds that held their hulls together. The bridge of the Crimson Fang shook as a near miss sent feedback through their shield generators. Vexthor watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. Ship after ship vanished from his tactical display, their transponders going dark as they were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. His warriors, the finest the Dominion had to offer, died screaming into their communications channels. "All ships retreat," Vexthor ordered, his voice cracking with something he had never experienced before. Fear. Jump to hyperspace immediately. Of the 12 warships that had entered human space with such confidence, only 3 managed to escape. Vexthor's flagship and 2 escorts made the jump to hyperspace, leaving behind 9 destroyed vessels and over 4,000 dead Krellian warriors. The battle had lasted 90 seconds from first shot to final retreat. Danny Morrison stood on his bridge, surrounded by his crew, and watched the surviving alien ships flee. His hands were shaking, but he kept them clasped behind his back where no one could see. He had just killed thousands of sentient beings, and the weight of that decision would stay with him for the rest of his life. But he had also saved his station and everyone on it. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," Danny said quietly. "Tell them we have made first contact with a hostile alien species. Tell them this is not a drill. Tell them we need reinforcements and we need them now." Vexthor returned to the Dominion's capital world in disgrace, his uniform stripped of its honors, his crew silent and traumatized. He stood before the High Council and reported what had happened, every word feeling like poison in his mouth. He told them about the human weapons, about the impossible firepower of a single station, about the way his fleet had been destroyed in less time than it took to complete a proper combat maneuver. The Council did not believe him. "You expect us to accept that a primitive species destroyed 9 warships with a civilian outpost?" High Chancellor Mortok demanded, his voice dripping with contempt. "You are either a coward or a liar, Vexthor. Perhaps both." "I speak the truth," Vexthor insisted, but he could see the disbelief in their eyes. "The humans possess weapons technology we have never encountered. They are dangerous, far more than we anticipated." "Enough," Mortok declared. "You are stripped of your command and will face court-martial for cowardice in the face of the enemy. As for these humans, they will be dealt with appropriately. We will assemble a proper fleet and crush them utterly. They will learn that attacking Krellian warriors carries a price beyond their imagination." Vexthor was dragged from the council chambers by guards, his career and honor destroyed. He tried to warn them one more time, shouting over his shoulder that they were making a terrible mistake, that the humans were not what they seemed. But no one listened. No one wanted to hear that the mighty Krellian Dominion had been bloodied by an unknown species. The High Council met in private session and made their decision. They would send a fleet unlike any assembled before. 3,000 warships would descend upon human space and erase this upstart species from existence. It would be a lesson to the entire galaxy about the cost of defying the Dominion. They did not know they had just made the greatest mistake in their civilization's history. The humans had tried to warn them, had given them a chance to retreat. That chance would not come again. The morning sun rose over Earth's Pacific Ocean, painting the waves with gold and crimson light. Fleet Admiral Kate Bishop stood at her office window in Geneva, watching the dawn break over a world that might soon face its greatest test. The intelligence reports on her desk told a story that would terrify most people. 3,000 alien warships were heading toward human space with obvious hostile intent. Kate was not most people. At 52 years old, she had spent 34 years in Earth's military, rising through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space. She had fought pirates in the outer colonies, commanded peacekeeping forces during the Mars uprising, and trained an entire generation of officers in the art of space warfare. She had seen combat, known loss, and understood that sometimes the hardest decisions were the ones that saved the most lives. The Unified Earth Command was meeting in 2 hours. and Kate knew the debate would be fierce. Some admirals would argue for a defensive perimeter around Earth, pulling back all resources to protect humanity's home world. Others would suggest diplomacy, attempting to negotiate with an enemy that had already shown its intentions by destroying Outpost Frontier's outer sensor arrays before the station fought back. Both approaches were wrong, and Kate intended to prove it. Her aide, a sharp young officer named Lieutenant Alex Stone, knocked on her door and entered with fresh coffee and the latest tactical assessments. "Admiral, the council chamber is ready." Fleet commanders from every sector are joining via secure link. They're waiting for your recommendation. Kate took the coffee and nodded her thanks. "Tell me, Alex, if you were defending your home and you knew a massive force was coming to destroy it, would you wait for them to arrive at your doorstep, or would you meet them far from everything you love?" Alex considered the question carefully. "I would meet them away from home, ma'am. But 3,000 ships against our entire fleet scattered across 24 systems. The odds are not favorable." "The odds are never favorable when you fight for survival," Kate said. "But we have one advantage these aliens don't expect. We're human. We're stubborn, creative, and when our backs are against the wall, we fight like nothing else in this universe. Now let's go show them what that means." The council meeting was exactly as contentious as Kate had predicted. Admiral Marcus Webb, commander of the Mars Defense Fleet, argued strongly for consolidating forces around the solar system. "We pull everything back, create a defensive sphere that nothing can penetrate, make them pay for every meter of space they take." Admiral Chen Yi, whose sister had died at Outpost Frontier, wanted immediate retaliation. "We take the fight to them before they reach our colonies. Hit them with everything we have. Show them that attacking humanity has consequences." Kate listened to both arguments and several others before finally speaking. "You're all thinking in terms of conventional warfare. Mass against mass, position against position. But we don't have the numbers to win that way. And defensive positions only work if you can maintain them forever. The moment we commit to a static defense, we're telling the enemy exactly where to find us." She brought up a holographic display of known space, showing the projected path of the Krellian fleet. "They're coming straight for Earth. They want to cut the head off the snake, destroy our command structure, and break our will to fight. So we don't give them that chance. We intercept them here." She pointed to a position far from any human colony, in the Arcturus cluster. "We take one ship, the best we have, and we make them bleed before they ever see Earth." "One ship?" Webb said incredulously. "Against 3,000? That's suicide, Kate." "No," Kate replied calmly. "That's a statement. The Krellians think they know us because they destroyed one outpost and lost 9 ships doing it. They think we're weak because we have fewer vessels than them. But they've never faced a human dreadnought in combat. They've never seen what our best can do when we're fighting for our survival. We show them now, far from our homes, and we show them so decisively that even if we fall, they'll think twice about continuing toward Earth." The debate continued for another hour, but Kate's logic was sound. A defensive stand at Earth would risk the entire human race in one battle. Attempting diplomacy with an enemy that had ignored all warnings was pointless. Meeting them away from populated space was the only option that gave humanity a fighting chance and room to maneuver, if things went wrong. Finally, Commander-in-Chief Patricia Grant, the civilian leader of Earth's military forces, made the decision. "Admiral Bishop, you have authorization to take the USS Revenant and intercept the Krellian fleet. Choose your crew carefully. The people you select will either save our species or die trying." Kate had already made her choices. She had spent the last 3 days reviewing personnel files, studying service records, and making the hardest selections of her career. She needed the best, but more than that, she needed people who understood what they were fighting for. Her first call went to Commander Ryan Hayes, currently serving as tactical officer on the Earth Defense Station. Ryan was 38, a tactical genius who had graduated top of his class at the Naval Academy and had spent 15 years perfecting the art of space combat. He had a wife, 2 children, and every reason to refuse the assignment. He accepted in less than 5 seconds. "I've read the reports from Outpost Frontier," Ryan said when they met in person. "Danny Morrison and his crew faced 12 ships with a station that was supposed to be a civilian outpost. If they could do that, we can do better with a proper warship. Count me in, Admiral." Next came Lieutenant Sophie Grant, no relation to the Commander-in-Chief despite sharing a last name. At 29, Sophie was the youngest chief engineer in the fleet. a prodigy who understood the new reactor systems and weapon configurations better than the scientists who designed them. She was small, barely over 5 feet tall, but her mind was larger than life. Kate found her in the Luna shipyards, literally inside a power conduit making modifications to the Revenant's energy distribution system. "Admiral Bishop," Sophie said, not bothering to climb out of the conduit. "I assume you're here to ask me to go into combat on a ship I haven't finished optimizing." "The answer is yes, but I want 72 hours to make modifications to the shield generators. I think I can increase efficiency by 18% if I recalibrate the harmonic frequencies." "You have 48 hours, Kate said. "And Sophie? What you're doing with these systems, it's brilliant. Just make sure they work when we need them." Sophie grinned, grease smeared across her cheek. "Admiral, when I'm done, this ship will be the most dangerous thing in space." "That's a promise." The pilot was the hardest choice. Kate needed someone with not just skill but instinct. Someone who could make split-second decisions while flying a ship the size of a small city through combat that would tear apart normal pilots. She found what she needed in Lieutenant Jake Morrison, Danny Morrison's younger brother. Jake was 26 and angry. His brother had survived the attack on Outpost Frontier, but the station had lost 47 crew members in the initial Krellian assault before the experimental weapons came online. Jake had grown up on that station, knew some of those people. When Kate approached him, he was training in a flight simulator, running combat scenarios over and over, pushing the simulation to its breaking point. "Lieutenant Morrison," Kate said, watching him complete a maneuver that should have been impossible. "I need a pilot who can keep a dreadnought alive against 3,000 enemy ships. Your scores say you're one of the best. Your brother says you're the best. I need to know if you're ready for this." Jake climbed out of the simulator and looked Kate straight in the eye. "Admiral, those alien bastards attacked my brother's station. They killed people I knew, people who had families and dreams and futures. Now they're coming for Earth, for everyone we love. You don't need to ask if I'm ready. I've been ready since the moment I heard what happened. Just get me to that ship and point me at the enemy." Over the next 48 hours, Kate assembled the rest of her crew. 400 men and women, each one a volunteer, each one knowing the odds they faced. Medical officers, weapon specialists, engineers, communications technicians, and Marines. They came from every corner of human space, from Earth's great cities to the smallest outpost on the frontier. They were humanity's best, and they would face humanity's greatest threat. The USS Revenant sat in Luna shipyards, a monster of human engineering. At 800 meters long and mounting weapons that could crack a moon, it represented the pinnacle of human military technology. The ship had been built with one purpose: to fight and win battles that conventional wisdom said were unwinnable. Its armor was layered exotic metals that could withstand incredible punishment. Its reactors could generate enough power to light a small city. Its weapons were the culmination of centuries of human warfare, refined and perfected for the ultimate test. Sophie made good on her promise, working around the clock to optimize every system. Ryan studied Krellian tactics based on the limited data from Outpost Frontier, developing attack patterns that would maximize the Revenant's advantages. Jake practiced flying the massive ship, learning its capabilities and limitations until he could feel the vessel respond to his thoughts as much as his controls. The Arcturus cluster was beautiful in a way that made humans feel small. Thousands of asteroids drifted through space like frozen sculptures, their surfaces glittering with ice and minerals that caught the light of distant stars. It was a place of silence and stillness, a corner of the universe where nothing much happened and few people ventured. That silence was about to be shattered forever. Supreme Commander Cormac of the Krellian Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Deathless, and watched his fleet emerge from hyperspace. 3,000 warships filled the space around him, the largest battle force ever assembled by his people. He was ancient by Krellian standards, having lived through 140 seasons, but his mind remained sharp and his reputation spotless. He had conquered 20 star systems personally and had never lost a battle in 70 years of military service. The humans would be his final conquest, a fitting end to a legendary career. After this, he would retire with full honors, his name spoken with reverence for generations. He expected the humans to surrender immediately when they saw the might arrayed against them. Most species did. Those that resisted were destroyed so completely that neighboring worlds surrendered without fighting. Supreme Commander, his sensor officer reported, "We have arrived at the designated coordinates, scanning for human military presence." Cormac waited patiently while his crew worked. He expected to find dozens of human ships, perhaps even hundreds if they had gathered their entire fleet. It would make no difference. 3,000 Krellian vessels would overwhelm any defense. This was simply a matter of procedure, a formality before the inevitable victory. "Sir," the sensor officer said, confusion evident in his voice, "I'm detecting only one ship. A single human vessel, heavy cruiser class by its energy signature. It's holding position at the edge of the cluster." Cormac felt a flash of anger. One ship? The humans were mocking him, treating this invasion as a joke. He had brought the full might of the Dominion across the stars, and they sent one vessel to meet him. It was an insult beyond measure. "Communications, open a channel to all ships," Cormac ordered. "All vessels are to hold position. I will not waste the strength of this fleet on a single enemy ship. Send forward 100 vessels to destroy the human craft. We will show them the price of disrespect." On the bridge of the USS Revenant, Kate Bishop watched the Krellian fleet appear on her displays and allowed herself a small smile. Everything was proceeding exactly as Ryan had predicted. The enemy commander was arrogant, confident in his overwhelming numbers. He would not commit his entire fleet at once, not against what appeared to be a lone human ship. "They're sending forward a squadron," Ryan reported from his tactical station. 100 ships, cruiser and destroyer class. "The main fleet is holding back." "Perfect," Kate said. "Jake, execute attack pattern Delta. Sophie, I need maximum power to forward shields and weapons. Ryan, weapons free as soon as we're in range. Let's show them what the Revenant can do." Jake's hands moved across his controls with practiced precision. "Attack pattern Delta I. Admiral, we're going in hot. Hold on to something." The Revenant suddenly accelerated, its engines flaring with power that pushed the crew back into their seats. The ship did not try to evade or retreat. Instead, it charged straight toward the advancing Krellian squadron at speeds that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The aliens had expected a defensive posture, maybe an attempt to flee. They got neither. The Krellian squadron commander watched the human ship approach and felt his first twinge of uncertainty. Something was wrong. The human vessel was moving too fast, its approach too direct. This was not the behavior of a ship that knew it was outmatched. But he had his orders, and pride would not allow him to retreat from a single enemy. "All ships combat formation. Target that vessel and open fire when in range." The Krellians opened fire first, their plasma cannons sending waves of superheated energy toward the Revenant. The human ship's shields absorbed the impacts, glowing bright blue as they dispersed the energy. Then the Revenant returned fire, and the Krellians learned what human weapons could do. The rail cannons fired first, accelerating solid projectiles to incredible speeds. Each round carried enough kinetic energy to punch through Krellian shields like they were made of paper. The first 3 alien ships simply exploded, their hulls torn apart by impacts they could not stop. The Krellian formation scattered, their neat combat approach dissolving into chaos. "Point defense systems, engage all fighters," Kate ordered calmly. "Ryan, target their command ships first. I want their coordination disrupted." The Revenant's point defense network lit up space with precise laser fire, tracking and destroying the smaller Krellian fighters that tried to swarm the human ship. Sophie's modifications to the shield harmonics proved their worth, allowing the Revenant to fire its torpedoes through its own shields at specific frequencies. The weapons became nearly impossible to intercept, their trajectories unpredictable until the moment of impact. Torpedo after torpedo slammed into Krellian ships, each one carrying a warhead that could crack a small moon. Explosions blossomed across the void as alien vessels died, their crews given no time to react, no chance to escape. The Krellian squadron that had been sent to destroy one human ship was being systematically annihilated. On the Deathless, Cormac watched his forward squadron die and felt something he had not experienced in decades: shock. In less than 4 minutes, 76 of his ships had been destroyed. The remaining 24 were fleeing back toward the main fleet, their formation broken, their weapons crews too terrified to fight effectively. "What is that ship?" Cormac demanded. "How is one vessel destroying an entire squadron?" His tactical officer stammered through his report. "Sir, the human weapons are unlike anything in our database. Their kinetic weapons are too fast to evade, and their torpedoes are passing through their own shields somehow." Our ships cannot withstand that kind of firepower. Cormac's shock turned to rage. He had been humiliated in front of his entire fleet. One human ship had destroyed nearly 80 Krellian vessels while sustaining only minor damage. This could not stand. If he did not respond with overwhelming force, his warriors would lose faith in his leadership. All ships attack formation, Cormac ordered. Every vessel is to engage that human ship. I want it destroyed, and I want it destroyed now. Spare nothing. Use everything we have. Kate watched her tactical display light up with 3,000 enemy contacts, all converging on her position. Here comes the real fight. Jake, take us into the asteroid field. Let's make them work for it. The Revenant turned and accelerated toward the densest part of the Arcturus cluster, the massive ship weaving between asteroids that should have been impossible for something its size to avoid. Jake flew with an instinct that bordered on precognition, his fingers dancing across the controls as he threaded the dreadnought through gaps measured in meters. The Krellian fleet followed, their anger overcoming their tactical discipline. Cormac had given them one order: destroy the human ship. His warriors took that order to heart, pouring into the asteroid field without regard for the danger. Ships collided with rocks, their shields unable to handle impacts at high speed. Smaller vessels were crushed between asteroids. The larger capital ships struggled to maneuver in the tight confines, their massive hulls making them easy targets. Kate let the Krellians chase her for an hour, drawing them deeper into the cluster. The Revenant's rear weapons kept up a constant barrage, picking off pursuing ships one by one. Every time the enemy got too close, Jake would pull a maneuver that should have been impossible, sliding the dreadnought sideways or dropping suddenly while firing upward into the enemy formation. Admiral, Ryan said, checking his displays, we've destroyed 147 enemy vessels, but our ammunition is depleting faster than projected. At this rate, we'll run out before we can destroy even half their fleet. That's fine, Kate said. We're not trying to destroy them all here. We're leading them exactly where we want them. Sophie, are the weapon platforms ready? Sophie grinned from her engineering station. All 70 platforms are armed and awaiting your signal. The Krellians have no idea what's waiting for them. Kate checked her navigation displays and saw they were approaching the coordinates she had selected weeks ago during the planning phase. Hidden among the asteroids were 70 unmanned weapons platforms, each one carrying enough firepower to take down multiple enemy ships. Earth Command had deployed them as insurance, a last line of defense in case the Revenant's mission failed. Kate was about to turn them into a trap that would change the course of the battle. All weapons platforms activate on my mark, Kate ordered. Jake, when I give the signal, full stop and turnabout. We're done running. The Revenant led the Krellian fleet through one final turn, bringing them into the killing zone. 3,000 angry alien ships followed, their weapons blazing, their crews screaming for human blood. They never saw the trap until it was too late. Mark, Kate said calmly. The weapons platforms activated simultaneously, emerging from hiding places among the asteroids. 70 platforms opened fire at once, catching the Krellian fleet in a devastating crossfire. The aliens found the battle had raged for 6 hours, and the Arcturus cluster had become a graveyard. Debris from destroyed ships drifted through space like metallic snow, the hulls of once proud Krellian warships torn apart and scattered across thousands of kilometers. The weapon platforms had exhausted their ammunition and gone silent, their purpose fulfilled. Now it was just the Revenant against what remained of the enemy fleet. Kate Bishop sat in her command chair, her uniform soaked with sweat despite the ship's climate control systems working overtime. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the focused intensity of people who knew they were fighting for their lives. Status displays showed damage across multiple sections of the ship, but nothing critical yet. The Revenant was hurt, but it was still very much in the fight. Status report, Kate ordered, taking a sip of water from a bottle someone had placed beside her hours ago. Ryan looked up from his tactical station, his face drawn with exhaustion. We've destroyed approximately 1,200 enemy vessels. The Krellians still have around 1,700 ships operational, but their formation is scattered. They're not coordinating their attacks anymore, just coming at us in waves. Ammunition status? Rail cannon rounds at 40%. Torpedoes down to 30%. Plasma capacitors need 15 minutes to fully recharge between firing cycles. We're managing, but we can't keep this pace forever. Sophie's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. Admiral, I've got damage control teams working on the port shield generators. We took some heavy hits in that last exchange. I can keep us running, but if we take concentrated fire on that section, we're going to have problems. Kate processed the information quickly. They had done far better than anyone expected, but the mathematics of the situation were simple. 1,700 ships could still overwhelm one, no matter how advanced. The Krellians had numbers, and eventually numbers would tell. Unless she could change the equation. Jake, how are you holding up? Kate asked her pilot. Jake's hands never stopped moving on his controls. His eyes locked on his displays. I'm good, Admiral. The ship handles like a dream. Sophie's modifications to the maneuvering thrusters are giving us response times that shouldn't be possible. I can keep dancing with them as long as you need me to. Kate studied the tactical display, looking for patterns in the Krellian attack. They were getting angrier, more aggressive, which made them predictable. Ships were breaking formation to pursue the Revenant individually, rather than coordinating their fire. It was exactly what Ryan had said would happen in his tactical analysis. Overwhelming force only worked if it was properly directed, and the Krellians were losing their discipline. Ryan, I'm seeing command ships scattered throughout their fleet. If we take those out, the smaller vessels will be even less coordinated. Target priority on any ship broadcasting command codes. Already on it, Admiral. I've identified 12 major command vessels in range. Preparing firing solutions. The next wave of Krellian ships approached, and the Revenant met them with precise, devastating fire. Jake flew the massive dreadnought like it was a fighter craft, spinning and diving through space while the weapons crews poured fire into the enemy formation. A Krellian command ship tried to organize a pincer attack, but Ryan's torpedoes found it first, the vessel exploding in a flash of light that temporarily blinded nearby ships. Hours turned into an eternity of combat. The Revenant fought through attack after attack, each one pushing the ship and crew closer to their limits. In engineering, Sophie worked miracles, rerouting power from damaged systems to keep the shields operational. Damage control teams rushed from section to section, sealing breaches and repairing critical systems while the ship shook around them from enemy fire. In the medical bay, doctors treated wounded crew members without pause. A plasma blast had breached one of the lower decks, injuring 15 people before emergency bulkheads sealed the section. The medical team worked efficiently, their training taking over even as the ship rocked from impacts and their patients cried out in pain. On the bridge, Kate watched her crew perform beyond anything she could have asked. Young officers who had never seen real combat before today fought with the calm precision of veterans. Veterans who had decades of service showed the younger crew members how to stay focused when everything around them was chaos. Admiral, Ryan said suddenly, his voice tight with urgency, the Krellian fleet is repositioning. They're pulling back from close engagement. Kate leaned forward, studying the tactical display. The enemy ships were indeed withdrawing, creating distance between themselves and the Revenant. For a moment she allowed herself to hope they were retreating. Then she saw the energy signatures building across the enemy fleet and understood what was coming. They're preparing for a coordinated bombardment, Kate said. They're going to try to overwhelm our shields with massed fire. Jake, evasive pattern Omega. Sophie, I need everything you can give me to the shields. Working on it, Sophie replied, her fingers flying across her engineering console, redirecting power from life support in non-essential sections. Pulling energy from the main engines. You'll have maximum shields for about 90 seconds. Then we're going to have a power shortage across the ship. 90 seconds is all we need, Kate said, then activated ship-wide communications. All hands brace for impact. This is going to hurt. The Krellian fleet opened fire simultaneously, 1,700 ships unleashing their weapons in one coordinated volley. Space itself seemed to ignite as plasma bolts, missiles, and energy beams converged on the Revenant's position. It was the kind of firepower meant to destroy small moons. All focused on one human ship. The Revenant's shields flared bright blue, then white, then colors that did not have names as they absorbed impossible amounts of energy. Jake threw the ship into a spiral, trying to spread the impacts across different shield sections. Sophie's modifications held, the shield harmonics distributing the load in ways that conventional systems could never manage. The ship shook like it was caught in an earthquake, systems overloading and circuit breakers failing across multiple decks. Kate gripped her command chair and watched the shield status displays drop from 100% to 80 to 60 to 40. The ship could not take much more. But then the bombardment stopped. The Krellians' weapons capacitors depleted from the sustained fire. The Revenant's shields held at 31% damaged but intact. "Return fire," Kate ordered. "Hit them while they're recharging. Show them that we're still here, still fighting." The Revenant's weapons blazed to life, and even depleted, they were devastating. Rail cannons found targets among the enemy fleet, each shot destroying or crippling a Krellian vessel. Torpedoes streaked across space, seeking out the ships that had contributed most to the bombardment. The Krellians had played their best hand, and the humans were still standing. On the bridge of the Deathless, Cormac watched his fleet's coordinated attack fail to destroy the human ship, and felt something break inside him. He had thrown everything at this one vessel, and it survived. More than survived, it was still fighting back, still killing his warriors. He had lost over 1,300 ships now. 1,300. The numbers were staggering, impossible, but the tactical display did not lie. His tactical officer approached hesitantly. "Supreme Commander, the fleet is faltering. Many ships are reporting critical damage. Morale is collapsing. The warriors no longer believe we can win this battle." Cormac looked at his officer and saw the fear in his eyes. The fear that came from realizing your entire worldview was wrong. The Krellian Dominion had built its empire on the belief that overwhelming force always prevailed. They had never encountered a species that could stand against their numbers and not only survive but win. Until now. "Sir," the officer continued quietly, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal. We have lost too much. If we retreat now, we can preserve what remains of the fleet and return with reinforcements." Retreat. The word tasted like poison to Cormac. In 70 years of warfare, he had never retreated from battle. But he looked at his displays and faced the truth. If he continued this fight, he would lose everything. The Revenant was going to destroy his entire fleet. One human ship was going to do what no enemy had done in 300 years of Krellian expansion: defeat them utterly. "All ships," Cormac said, his voice heavy with shame. "Prepare to withdraw." "We are retreating to Krellian space." Kate saw the enemy fleet begin to disengage and felt a moment of relief wash over her. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had broken the Krellian attack. Earth was safe. Humanity would survive. The crew around her began to cheer, the tension breaking into celebration. Then Kate made the hardest decision of her life. "Belay that celebration," she ordered, her voice cutting through the joy. "Jake, pursue the enemy fleet. Ryan, weapons free on any ship attempting to jump to hyperspace." The bridge fell silent. Ryan turned to look at his admiral with shock on his face. "Sir, they're retreating." "We've won." "No," Kate said quietly. "We've won the battle. But if we let them go, they'll return with a larger fleet. They'll tell their people about our tactics, our weapons, our weaknesses. They'll come back prepared, and next time one ship won't be enough to stop them. I'm sorry, but we cannot let any of..." The journey back to human space took 3 days, and every hour of it was silent. The USS Revenant limped through the darkness, its hull scarred with plasma burns and kinetic impacts, its crew exhausted beyond anything they had ever experienced. They had fought for 18 continuous hours against an enemy that should have overwhelmed them. They had survived. They had won. But victory felt hollow when Kate Bishop looked at the casualty reports. 42 crew members had died during the battle. 42 people who would never see Earth again. Never return to their families, never know the peace they had died to secure. Kate read each name, each service record, committing them to memory. These people had trusted her leadership, and she had led them into a battle that claimed their lives. The fact that they had saved billions did not erase the cost. In the medical bay, doctors worked around the clock treating the wounded. Over 100 crew members had been injured, some seriously. Sophie Grant had burns across her arms from an electrical fire in engineering that she had personally extinguished while her team evacuated. She refused to leave her post even now, monitoring the ship's damaged systems and keeping everything running through sheer will and knowledge. Jake Morrison sat alone in the pilot's quarters, staring at his hands. They were shaking, had been shaking since the battle ended. He had flown perfectly for 18 hours, making impossible maneuvers while thousands of enemy weapons tried to kill him and everyone on the ship. Now that the adrenaline was gone, his body was remembering that it was supposed to be terrified. He wondered if he would ever be able to fly again without seeing those enemy ships in his mind. Ryan Hayes was in the tactical center, writing his after-action report with meticulous detail. Every decision, every target priority, every moment of the battle was documented with cold precision. Other officers might have made themselves sound heroic in their reports. Ryan just wrote the truth. They had killed approximately 4,000 enemy crew members in 18 hours of combat. The mathematics of warfare were simple. Either they died or humanity died. He had made his choice, and he would live with it. Kate found Ryan there, surrounded by displays showing the battle from every angle. "Commander, you should get some rest. The report can wait." Ryan did not look away from his screens. "I need to finish this while it's fresh, Admiral. If we ever face something like this again, whoever comes after us needs to know exactly what we did and why. They need to understand the decisions that saved our lives." "We made hard choices," Kate said quietly. "We pursued a fleeing enemy and destroyed them. Some people will call that necessary. Others will call it murder. I call it survival," Ryan replied. "The Krellians came to destroy us. We gave them a chance to leave at Outpost Frontier. They came back with 3,000 ships. If we had let them retreat, they would have returned with 10,000. We did what was necessary, and history can judge us however it wants." Kate left him to his work and made her way through the damaged ship. She stopped at every section, talking to crew members, thanking them for their service, checking on the wounded. Some people smiled when they saw her. Others looked away, unable to meet her eyes. She understood both reactions. Leadership meant making decisions that others would have to live with, and not everyone could separate the necessary from the unforgivable. When the Revenant finally reached Luna shipyards, a fleet of recovery vessels surrounded the damaged dreadnought. Engineers marveled at how the ship was still operational with so much damage. Whole sections of the hull were missing, shield generators were burned out, and the main reactor was running at barely 60% capacity. By all rights, the ship should have died in the asteroid field. That it survived at all was a testament to Sophie's engineering genius and the crew's refusal to give up. Earth Command tried to keep the details classified, but information leaked almost immediately. The story spread through human space like wildfire. One ship against 3,000. Victory against impossible odds. Humanity's greatest military triumph. Within days, every colony knew about the Battle of Arcturus Cluster. Within weeks, the story reached beyond human borders. The galactic community took notice. Species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence suddenly began treating them with cautious respect. Trade delegations that had been scheduled for years in the future arrived within months. Diplomatic channels that had gone unanswered were suddenly open. Everyone wanted to know more about these humans who had destroyed an entire Krellian fleet. But the most significant change happened in the shadows of space, in the places where pirates, raiders, and opportunistic empires planned their expansions. Word spread quickly among those who lived by violence: stay away from human space. Ships that approached human borders found themselves watched by sensor arrays and warships that appeared seemingly from nowhere. The few pirates who ignored the warnings and raided human outposts were hunted down with ruthless efficiency and destroyed without mercy. The Krellian Dominion collapsed within a year. The loss of their fleet and Supreme Commander Cormac created a power vacuum that tore their empire apart. Worlds that had been conquered generations ago saw their opportunity and rebelled. The Krellian military fragmented into competing factions, each claiming to be the true inheritors of the Dominion. Within 18 months, the empire that had conquered 73 star systems had shattered into a dozen smaller states, none of them willing to even look in humanity's direction. Kate Bishop was promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, the highest military position in human space. She accepted the promotion with the same quiet dignity she brought to everything. But those close to her noticed the weight she carried. She slept poorly when she slept at all. Her office in Geneva became a place where she spent countless hours reviewing fleet deployments, training protocols, and contingency plans for threats that might never materialize. She visited the families of every crew member who had died on the Revenant. It was not required by regulations, not expected by anyone, but Kate felt she owed them that much. She sat in living rooms and answered questions about how their loved ones had died, whether they had suffered, whether their sacrifice had mattered. Sometimes the families thanked her. Sometimes they blamed her. She accepted both with equal grace. Jake Morrison left active flight duty 6 months after the battle. His skills were undimmed, his record spotless, but he could not shake the images from his mind. Every time he sat in a pilot's chair, he saw the Krellian ships he had helped destroy. saw the explosions that had claimed thousands of lives. Earth Command honorably discharged him and set him up as an instructor at the Naval Academy, where he could pass on his knowledge without having to fight again. Sophie Grant became the youngest chief of engineering in Earth's military history. She was given unlimited resources to continue developing the technologies that had kept the Revenant alive through 18 hours of combat. Her work on shield harmonics and weapons integration became standard across the entire fleet. She rarely talked about the battle, preferring to focus on the technical challenges of her work rather than the memories of keeping a dying ship alive through sheer determination. Ryan Hayes remained Kate's tactical officer, eventually promoted to admiral and given command of his own fleet. His tactical manual, based on the lessons learned at Arcturus Cluster, became required reading for every officer in Earth's military. He never forgot the cost of their victory, never let himself believe that the mathematics of warfare made the deaths any less real, but he understood that sometimes survival required hard choices, and he was willing to make them. The USS Revenant itself became a monument. Rather than repair the ship for active duty, Earth Command decided to preserve it exactly as it had returned from battle. They moved it to a memorial orbit around Earth, where people could see the scarred hull and remember what had been sacrificed for their safety. New recruits toured the ship as part of their training, walking through the damaged corridors and seeing the plasma burns on the bulkheads. Kate stood on the Revenant's bridge 1 year after the battle, looking out at Earth through the cracked windows that had somehow survived the fighting. Behind her, a class of new recruits listened as she told them the story of what had happened here. She did not make it sound glorious. She did not hide the cost. She told them the truth. Warfare was terrible, necessary, and something that marked everyone who participated in it. We did not fight because we wanted to be heroes, Kate told the recruits. We fought because someone had to stand between Earth and an enemy that wanted to destroy us. We made hard choices. We took actions that will haunt some of us for the rest of our lives. But we saved billions of people who will never know our names, never understand what happened here. That is the reality of service. You do not fight for glory. You fight for the people who sleep safely because you are willing to stand watch. The recruits listened in silence, some of them looking at the battle damage around them with new understanding. This was not a simulator. This was not a training exercise. This was the reality of what they were signing up for. Some would probably reconsider their career choices. That was fine. Kate would rather they learn the truth now than discover it when lives depended on them.